Psych Sense, where we make sense of mental health. I'm Ken Mallon, your host, and today we're going to be talking about mental health careers. As I described in a previous video, I'm a graduate student in clinical psychology at Notre Dame de Nemours University, a fantastic institution located in Belmont, California, which is close to San Francisco and the center of entrepreneurship and technology, Silicon Valley. I'm in a master's program that leads to two kinds of licensures, the LPCC and the MFT. I'll be talking about these licensures and career choices in mental health, in addition to the educational requirements for them. But first, I want to talk about why pursuing mental health careers is so important. Today, 89 million Americans live in an area with a shortage of mental health professionals. That's a lot of people. That's about a quarter of the country. So pursuing a mental health career basically means you're lining yourself up for an automatic job. In addition, about a quarter of Americans will deal directly with mental illness this year. It's become so common that mood disorders are the number 3 most common reason for hospitalization in the United States amongst people aged 18 to 44. What do you need to do to pursue a career in mental health? Well, you need to get the right education, you need to do the volunteer and practicum work, you need to complete an internship, and you need to get licensed. Depending on your undergraduate training, you might be able to apply directly to a graduate program in psychology. In other cases, such as mine, you might have to complete some prerequisites first before applying to graduate school. In addition, you also need to think about whether you want to go to school full-time during the day or whether you need to keep your day job and pursue graduate training in the evenings and weekends. In my case, I needed to keep, and I actually enjoy my day job. So I decided to apply to a program near me that had mostly evening classes and weekend classes. In addition, the program I targeted required 5 prerequisites, of which I had only completed 2. So I needed to go to a community college near me to complete the other 3 requirements before starting the program. So what careers specifically are we talking about? Well, we've all heard the terms counselor, therapist, psychologist, and psychiatrist. So let me start with those terms. There are certain job titles and certain terminology that can only be used if you've completed certain degree programs or you have certain licenses, which means you've passed certain tests in your state. Let's start with psychiatrist. A psychiatrist is a physician who specializes in psychiatry. In the same way that some physicians specialize in infectious diseases or internal medicine or arthritis, a psychiatrist is a medical doctor who has specifically focused on psychiatry. So in order to become a psychiatrist, you basically need to start by getting an MD. So what does a psychiatrist do? Well, when you first go to a psychiatrist, she'll likely perform some tests on you to determine if your symptoms are primarily biologically caused, psychologically caused, or a combination of both. And psychiatrists can also administer psychotherapy. However, the vast majority of psychiatrists do medical management of your symptoms, and they refer patients to psychologists or therapists for their psychotherapy. Let me give you an example. Suppose someone has depression. Now they might go to a psychologist or a therapist on a weekly basis for psychotherapy, but they may see a psychiatrist perhaps on a monthly or every other month to get adjustments to their medical treatment. The psychiatrist during those appointments might ask them about their side effects, and the psychiatrist may determine whether or not they would need to adjust a dose or switch to a different medication. So that kind of summarizes psychiatry. Again, to become a psychiatrist, you need to start with an MD. If an MD seems pretty daunting, the next thing you might want to consider is to become a psychologist. In nearly all cases, a psychologist is required to have a PhD or what's called a PsyD in psychology. So it's still a lot of education, but you don't need to deeply study medicine the way MDs do. Once you have a PhD or a PsyD, there are a variety of careers you can pursue. You might set up a clinical practice in which you treat people that are suffering from mental illnesses such as depression, anxiety, phobias, and so forth. Some psychologists become professors and work in academia, or they might do research, and even others do a combination of both. In fact, many practicing psychologists who have PhDs both teach classes in an academic setting as well as having a clinical practice on the side. And those with PhDs in psychology don't only have to pursue clinical psychology. There are other forms of psychology they might want to pursue, and this might include social psychology, corporate psychology. They might be interested in helping companies perform better, and so there are a variety of different ways that they might want to apply their psychology degree. It takes a while. Generally, after a bachelor's degree, in order to obtain a PhD in psychology, it's going to take 4 to 7 years. So we've covered psychiatrist, which is an MD, and we've covered psychologist, which requires a PhD. The next thing you might want to think about is obtaining a master's degree in psychology. Obtaining a master's degree in psychology is primarily for people who want to clinically practice, who want to work on a day-to-day basis with people that are suffering from a variety of conditions. Those pursuing a master's degree generally don't go into academia and don't pursue research. Now let's get into terminology. Someone who does not have a PhD in psychology usually refers to themselves as a therapist or a counselor. Again, the term psychologist is reserved for those that have a PhD. A related field, social work, requires a different degree. It's usually an MSW, a Master's in Social Work. Once you have a master's degree, there are a variety of different licenses you can pursue. There's the LPCC and the MFT. The LPCC is the license in professional clinical counseling, and the MFT is a license in marriage and family therapy. There are a variety of different licenses you can pursue in social work. One is the LSW. Those with a master's degree can pursue a variety of things, including becoming a school counselor. Those working in schools generally do assessments of students. They're generally focused on behavioral issues and learning disabilities. Others with a master's in psychology can pursue either general clinical practice, where they treat the same kind of disorders I just mentioned a psychologist would treat, such as depression, anxiety, and so forth, or they can choose to specialize in marriage and family therapy. This is what is generally referred to as a marriage counselor. Those who pursue therapy practices generally focus on one or two areas. For example, they may focus on a particular age group, such as children and adolescents, or they may focus on a particular illness area, such as depression or anxiety or PTSD. And as I mentioned, still others may pursue family therapy and marriage therapy. There are many job roles that require degrees in psychology, and there are many careers available, some of which I haven't mentioned. One I do want to point out is art therapy. Now, art therapy is a very interesting new area, and my school, Notre Dame de Nemours University, offers both a master's degree and a PhD in art therapy. I believe it might be the only school in the U.S. to offer a PhD in art therapy. Many people, particularly those suffering from trauma, such as PTSD, find it very difficult to articulate their pain, and in many cases they find art not only to be a great way to express it, so that the therapist can understand better what's going on, but it also serves to relieve some of that tension. It actually helps them get through their symptoms. I hope this information has been useful and inspires you to consider a career in mental health. If you have any questions or requests for future videos, please comment down below. Thank you for watching Psych Sense, where we make sense of mental health. I'm Ken Mallon, your host, and I'll see you next time.